Welcome to Season 4, Episode 22 of the Outlap F1 Podcast, part of the Ship It Studios Podcast Network. This is the Canadian Grand Prix race preview. I am your host, James, along with my wonderful co-host, Andy. John and Deanna, of course, not on the preview show. But Andy, we are back, baby! Oh, Canada, here we come.
Oh, Canada. It feels so good. I mean, talk about kind of the track, I think, that kind of edifies the pandemic, because we haven't been there in 3 years, and it's kind of gone around, and it was really the last big event before the pandemic last year in 19. So happy to be back. It's probably going to be full of fans. It looks like demand is already crazy from what I've heard just by the by. So yeah, excited for it.
Same here, Andy. I love the Canadian Grand Prix, and it has been terrible not having it the last couple of years. So it is good to be back. Speaking of back, my microphone, this is 2 episodes in a row now, Andy, and I'm killing the technology game as of late. So
yes, we're going to have the sign in the back that says consecutive episodes with equipment working, and now it will flip over from 1 to 2.
I'm on a roll. I'm not going to call it a trend yet, but we're getting
you're
going.
Not trending. You're pre-trending. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. I'm on the cusp. Yep. On the cusp of a trend.
Yep.
All right, we do have a Grand Prix to preview today, but before we get into that, I have to remind everybody you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast. See our link tree on our Twitter profile page for all those connections there. Do us a solid and click like and subscribe on YouTube, or click that 5-star button if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Of course, you can email the show at chatnow@outlapf1.com. Check out the website at www.outlapf1.com. Where you can find all of our old episodes, such as the F1 for Beginners episode back on episode 4 of this season, an episode to listen to if you're new to the sport. We talk everything from soup to nuts, all the teams, all the drivers, so go ahead, check that out and get yourself caught up with the rest of us. You can also check out Relapped with Deanna, our co-host Deanna's other project, where she does live, sometimes live race reviews, but a lot of times does a video after the race, and they are typically amazing. Also, Outlap F1 Nation continues to step up. Andy, here's your time to shine.
As always, thank you so much to our monetary donors, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Cody Walsh, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, Mary Brown, Jonathan Scott, and of course, Matt Polanski from the Red Sector MotoGP podcast. If you'd like to become a member of the hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, please see our link in the show notes. As you can tell, $1, $5, it all goes. When we turn our equipment on, that's where it's going to go. So, as long as that is being taken care of, we will use the money for good purposes. We promise.
Maybe some lessons on how to work technology. I don't know. Whatever I need to do.
This is on,
if you want to help,
and this is on.
I'm learning, Andy.
Yep.
You can also, you can find that link to help promote the show in the show notes. Make sure you check that out. You can also check out Manscaped and use code OUTLAP, all one word, for 20% off and free shipping, all your manscaping needs. And of course, check out thef1guy.com. That's our boy Vincenzo's t-shirt line. So go take a look and see what they've got there. All right, all the housekeeping things, all the admin work is done, Andy. Let's dive into the race weekend. First, some news that's been popping up the last couple of days. The Australian Grand Prix secures a deal through 2035. Andy, not the best at math, but 13 years from now?
That's a long contract. So if there was any speculation about them not having their preferred spot at the beginning of the season, I would assume that would probably be the next announcement that you're going to see, is that it will probably be back at its traditional opening day spot. Also, this is actually a big deal. They're going to have F2 and F3 as support races starting next year. So they're all going to bite the bullet and do the freight dance. We've said this before about F2 and F3. Hopefully everything makes it to where it needs to go. But I would also think, because it's probably going to be the first race of the year, they're probably going to be able to set this up so that it can work. Great for the Australian Grand Prix. It was nice to be back there this year. It's a great atmosphere. The track layout has gotten better, at least in terms of the racing. So now that the cars will have, everyone will have a chance to get some data on it. Should be great. Should be awesome.
Yeah, no, personally, I'm excited. I want to make it back to Australia at some point and hopefully time that up with a race. So now I've got plenty of time to get that figured out. I can start saving away for that. Let's move on to the Latifi rumors, which are abundant all over the internet. The latest understanding is that he will see out the remainder of his contract, which would then make room for Oscar Piastri in 2023. If that happens, it is also rumored that Williams would switch to Renault Power for 2023 and beyond, securing their place towards the back of the grid. Andy, pretty big news there.
Well,
what do you think?
I mean, it's not
or
like
potential news.
I mean, none of this has been necessarily in motion. It's a lot of dominoes that have to fall a certain way to make this all happen, and it seems to make sense. Obviously, Nicholas Latifi's name has been up in any rumor of, he's out after next week. He's going to see out the rest of his contract. We speculated, and I said what I thought was going to happen is exactly this, is that he would see out the remainder of his contract, because I think those buyout clauses are not exactly fun for Williams, and I don't think they want to deal with them, honestly. So, this way, he sees out the contract, he goes on his merry way, then they can make room to put Oscar Piastri, who they are very high on, into the car. Interesting, the power unit switch. You have to wonder if that's seeing maybe the potential of the Alpine, especially in the straights in Baku last week, if that possibly has any rumblings or burblings about it, to see if that maybe has something to do with it. Renault Power has not been awful in this era. It's not been the best, but there have been streaks where they've been maybe the second or, maybe the 1A team at times, especially in a straight line. So that seems to make sense. And if Williams wants to go in a new direction, this is a way to start that.
Yeah, it would be interesting for Alex Albon. That would be his third different power unit manufacturer in Formula One. It would also be really interesting just to see that teammate battle there. Piastri's got a lot of talent. A lot of people are really disappointed he's not in Formula One already after winning a couple championships. But coming in and facing Alex Albon, I think would be a really good matchup for him and show us what he's really got there. So that is something that we'll definitely keep an eye on. I think Latifi will probably finish out that contract for what you said, but I don't know. We'll get to it in the predictions, but I'm not predicting a very good weekend for Latifi. So if he keeps wasting money for Williams by having to replace parts and fix that car up, we'll see what happens there. All right, so moving on to Ferrari and Charles Leclerc. His engine situation, it could be better. I'll be honest. He needs to use a new third power unit.
He's looking in the cupboard for a power unit and a turbocharger. And I don't think he's finding them.
Yeah, it's not great. This would be his third engine. The real question, though, right now is the turbocharger. If Ferrari can use one of the old ones from an old power unit onto this new one, they'll escape without a penalty for now. But if he does need a new one, that's a 10-place grid penalty. If he gets a whole new setup, that's a pit lane start. So neither one of those things is very appealing. And I think this is the turbocharger they used with the first power unit, if I remember correctly. So hopefully that all works out okay. But, Ferrari's definitely going to face a number of power unit penalties the rest of the season, already being on their third one. So,
it's a tough situation. The power unit that blew up last Sunday was power unit number 1. So they don't, and then power unit 2 also had, other issues. So those are the only 2 that they've done. So he's getting a fresh, clean, new spec power unit for this weekend. So that's engine 3. The question's going to come down to if they can use one of those turbochargers and it's good enough to swap out and is reliable enough to get through this weekend, he'd be okay. This is a track you can overtake. It's not crazy not to. So you may see them go out and free practice 1, free practice 2 on the old stuff, see if it's viable. Don't be shocked if you don't get one of those FIA notices throughout the weekend that says, screw it, we're just going to take the penalty now.
Yeah, Ferrari is arguably the quickest car. It's definitely over 1 lap. That's the fastest car on the grid right now. But the race day pace just isn't there. The Red Bull really comes alive on Sundays. So I will remain. I'm gonna be positive this weekend, Andy, but not not nearly as positive as I was a few weeks ago. But yeah, Ferrari needs to start punching back before Red Bull just completely runs away with this, and it's just a battle between Max and Checo for the Drivers' Championship. But that's it for news. Let's go ahead and throw the green flag and move on to the Canadian Grand Prix Track Facts, which, as always, is brought to us by Pirelli Motorsport. So this is the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Did I say that one right, Andy?
Yep.
It's located in Montreal, Quebec. That's up in Canada. 70 total laps. Track length of 4.361 kilometers or 2.709 miles. The tire selection for the weekend is the C3, C4, and C5. Track characteristics: traction and braking, both 5 out of 5. A lateral load of 1 out of 5. Tire stress, 3 out of 5. Track evolution, 5 out of 5. Asphalt grip and downforce, both 1 out of 5. Asphalt abrasion at 2 out of 5. The current qualifying lap record, a minute 10 seconds, .240 by Sebastian Vettel in 2019. The race lap record, however, is a minute 13.078 by Valtteri Bottas, also in 2019. Most wins on this track, that's a tie between Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher with 7. Where have I heard that before? Nelson Piquet behind them with 3, and then there's 6 drivers tied at 2 apiece. Vettel and Senna, 2 of the more notable ones in that list. Most constructor wins. For this a few times before too, Andy, but that's Ferrari with 14. McLaren in second with 13. I don't think that's in any danger of either team adding to that total, unfortunately. Williams, they have 7. They're there in third place. Brabham and Mercedes with 4. And then 4 teams, including Red Bull Racing, with 2 apiece. Andy, please tell me what the circuit is like.
So the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is a fast, low downforce circuit and one of the driver's favorites. The track is a quick stop-start with lots of heavy braking, chicanes, and the famous hairpin to get the anchors working hard. Out of the corners, though, the track is quick and flowing, with the most iconic piece of the circuit comes right at the end of the lap. That would be the Wall of Champions, named so-called after the excursions into it from the likes of Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve, and Michael Schumacher during the 1999 Canadian Grand Prix weekend. As for the weather, qualifying looks to have potential for rain. So it is Montreal, it is June. It can rain in that part of the world. So rain showers early with mostly cloudy conditions later in the day. So we have potential for maybe a drying track. High of 63 degrees, so going to be cooler than what we've been the last couple rounds. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10. Chance of rain, 60%. As for the race, sunshine and clouds mixed. High of 66 degrees. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10. We're not going to see a whole lot of rain for race day. Only a scant 3% chance of rain. There is a chance, but not much of one for race day.
All right, thank you, Andy. Now let's take a quick break, pay some bills, and we'll be right back to talk predictions. Welcome back to Season 4, Episode 22 of the Outlap F1 Podcast, part of the Ship It Studios Podcast Network. This is the Canadian Grand Prix race preview. Once again, I'm your host, James, along with my wonderful co-host, Andy. One reminder, make sure you check out our newest sponsor, Athletic Greens, at www.athleticgreens.com/emerging. Surprisingly tasty, Andy. I actually am considering getting healthy for the summer.
It's not a bad way to do it.
I don't think I'm going to do it for long, but I will continue to enjoy the Athletic Greens. But then I'm going to just have the shitty diet besides that, because maybe it'll balance it out a little bit. This, I'm cultivating mass before bulking season.
Oh, there you go.
It'll be fine.
There you go.
All right, so let's get into the predictions now, Andy. Deanna's going to put hers in a little bit later. Thank you, sir.
There we go.
As always, we start with the qualifying pole sitter. I'm going with Charles Leclerc. I think he's still the fastest over one lap right now. And hopefully he just keeps getting me these points for this category. Where do you see it finishing, Andy?
I suspect a grid penalty, but that does not affect this. That affects after qualifying. So I think with fresh turbocharger, fresh power unit, it's the best car in over one lap, kind of by far at this point. So Charles Leclerc for the pole on Saturday.
All right, and John disagrees. He's going with Sergio Checo Perez as his pole sitter there. All right, so for qualifying fastest lap, one of us has been extremely close the last couple races. I think we all know who that was.
Close to winning both showcases there, but
I'm going for it all here, Andy. I'm going to try and predict the exact time this week. And I'm going with 1 minute 11.326. So, fingers crossed. John, on the other hand, is going very fast, very quick. He's got 1 minute 10.390 for Checo there. So, Andy, where do you stand?
I'm a tad slower than the both of you. Basically, I'm thinking potentially drying track, colder temperatures, tires, maybe not in the ideal window, and cars that we're not necessarily sure how they're going to react around here. But I'm close to you guys on lap time, so I think we're going to be in the 111s, but I'm going 111.894.
All right, good deal, good deal. All right, so let's move into the podium, and why don't you start us off, Andy?
All right, I'm going to take, well, it's hard to bet against him right now until somebody comes up and takes it. Max Verstappen, P1. I do think Charles will have a heck of a adventure. I think he will be the guy to watch. I think he will come through the field, and he will ultimately, I'm saying he's going to get Checo at the end and get P2, but I do think Checo Perez will round out the podium here in Canada for P3.
All righty. For my podium, I too have Max Verstappen in first place. Because he's on an absolute tear right now. If he finishes the race, he pretty much wins it. And really, I'm just kind of hoping maybe this jinxes him and slows him down a little bit. But I got him in first. I got Checo Perez in second, because I also wouldn't be surprised if there is some sort of grid penalty for Charles Leclerc. That's a good point. And I think Sergio is going to be too quick for Leclerc to catch him after coming back through the field. But I do see him finishing in third, and if Charles goes from like 11th to third to get a podium, I'll be very happy. It'll be a very enjoyable Sunday, so I'm rooting for that. John, on the other hand, or I shouldn't say that on the other hand because his hand is exactly the same as my hand. He also has Max Verstappen in first, Checo Perez in second, and Charles Leclerc in third. So,
okay,
yeah, let's move on to fastest lap / driver. For this one, I have Max Verstappen at 1 minute 13.326. John has Max Verstappen as well with 1 minute 13.201. Andy, what say you?
Boy, you guys are like setting lap records here. I mean, what is with these cars and thinking that we're going to have a Canadian Grand Prix record? Maybe I'm wrong, and Lord knows last week I picked a bad prediction and I gave everybody a point. But I'm going to go Sergio Perez, and I'm going to say 1 minute 15 race pace here, 0.894.
Snail's pace.
Well, it's also full of fuel. Yeah, and unless we have lots of safety cars or something like that, I don't see a potential to put on a soft tire because I think that's what it would take to get there. But again, I could be way off. That's the beauty of this.
I too could be way off. I'm a much better qualifying predictor than a race lap predictor. For bonus picks, John went with 4th, 10th, and 20th. Andy, what do you got?
All right, so for P4, he makes the top 5 every week. Why would I bet against him now? That would be Mr. George Russell. P10, I do see if he's going to get points, this is probably where Daniel Ricciardo would slot in, probably at the end of the points. I'm hoping for more, obviously, but I'm hoping that you at least get that. And P20, I hate to do this, but I don't see Mick Schumacher finishing this race. Canada comes up and bumps people. We have this thing called the Wall of Champions, and he's not even a race winner yet. So, Mick Schumacher possibly P20.
All right, Andy. In 4th place, I got Carlos Sainz. 10th, Sebastian Vettel. And in 20th, the homegrown kid, Nicholas Latifi. I think he's out, and he's out early and epically. So, let's see what he can do for the hometown fans. Moving on to John, a little bit of a conspiracy brewing, I feel. His bonus picks, he's got Carlos Sainz in 4th, Sebastian Vettel in 10th, and Latifi in 20th. So he had the same podium as me, and now the same 4th, 10th, and 20th
now,
bonus
you
picks.
You did have your security up there, right?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Okay, then this is independent.
Well, maybe we need stronger security. I don't know, Andy.
Or it's great.
I'm questioning a lot of things right now.
Or it's great minds thinking alike. I don't know.
I don't know if it's that. All I don't know. Maybe we need some sort of like security sponsor to start
There we go.
sponsoring the show.
CrowdStrike's already taken. They've already sponsored F1 and Mercedes and all that. But they can come if they want to give us some money to read their name. I'll happily read their ad. That's the way it works. So anyway, moving on to our prop bet. And because this is the land of the Canada, and we've called this many times Team Canada, and that would be Nicholas Latifi and Lance Stroll. I'm not setting a very high bar for them here. I just want to know, will Team Canada, which would be both of them, see the checkered flag, meaning they have to be running at the end of the race on Sunday? James, what's your thought?
No. And no explanation necessary.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, that's fine. John has said yes. John has faith in Team Canada and the homegrown kids to make it to the end. I do not have any faith in these in at least one of them. So I don't see that happening. I think it will be a resounding no. But if they do finish in spite of us, then at least they have something to take away from what's been a very difficult season for the both of them. All right. And as we said earlier, it might have got cut off by the music. Deanna's going to get her predictions in a little bit later, and then we will recap everything on our review on Sunday. As for the session times, these are obviously later in the day because they're in our time frame. They're in North America. So FP1 kicks off 2 p.m. Eastern. FP2, a little bit later in the day, 5 p.m. Eastern. So as you're getting off of work, catch some F1 if you're so inclined. FP3 kicks off 1 p.m. Eastern. A very important qualifying session will kick off at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then the race on Father's Day, make sure you account for that if you're making plans, will happen at 2 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. James, any other final thoughts before we hop into our back-to-back, before we get into our European season, the Canadian Grand Prix weekend?
I'm excited. As I mentioned before, I love the Canadian Grand Prix. I had some good memories watching Canadian Grand Prix, as you know. So that's, it's going to be great. I'm going to be in Milwaukee for the weekend with some friends. So on the way back early Sunday morning, I'll be stopping at the old brat stop, picking up some brats, grilling them up, enjoying Father's Day, watching the race. So should be a nice little Sunday. Might crack a few New Glarus brews as well. So I'm excited to get into it Sunday night and review it all. Hopefully some sort of epic drive by Charles Leclerc. So here's to it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find at least an Italian sausage hot dog or a bratwurst myself. And I'm going to try to find a Labatt just because it's the Canadian Grand Prix weekend.
Okay.
That was my beer of choice when I was up there a few years ago. And they have very high alcohol by volume, so you'll get screwed up a little bit quicker.
That's what I used to get at the United Center when I, early on in my season ticket run of Blackhawks tickets. I used to get the Labatt because it was a higher alcohol content. And back then, buying, $8, $9 beers.
All good until you won't go to stand up and you go, whoa, that hit a little bit more than I thought it would. But,
yeah.
Anyway, if you're like me, be safe. Don't go driving in that situation. But as always, may all your laps be fast.